Hilda grew up together in the same compound. She had a crush on the gentle and refined Kyle next door. I was drawn to the aloof and domineering Jared downstairs. We each pursued our own crushes, until I discovered Kyle and Jared both liked the new transfer student, Hedda. I gave up after persisting for a while. Hilda said she wanted to hold on a little longer. I scolded her, then went abroad for further studies to avoid the situation. 7 years later, I returned home. Hilda came to pick me up at the airport. I smiled and asked her how things were going with Kyle. She took a sip of wine, remained silent for a moment, then quietly said to me, "Kay, I've decided to give up on Kyle." Hello, everyone. Welcome to my channel. Subscribe us to read wonderful novels every day. Now the story begins. To be honest, I never thought I'd hear these words come from Hilda's mouth one day. After all, back when I had that falling out with Jared, I even tried painstakingly to persuade her. Hilda, just let it go. They're all bewitched by Hedda. In their eyes, Hedda is a pure and flawless white lotus, while we're the vicious and shameless man-eating flowers. It's just a man. Come abroad with me. Out of sight, out of mind. I remember Hilda smiling at me back then. She was beautiful. Since childhood, she had always been the schoolbelle with both looks and grades, and her personality was incredibly gentle. So I could never understand what kind of blindness Kyle had suffered to fall for Hedda, who was far inferior to Hilda in every way. She shook her head gently at me and said, "Kay, I like Kyle, and it has nothing to do with him." It was a cliched line, but coming from Hilda's lips, it only made one sigh in pity for her. I let out a sigh and said with frustration, "Fine, I just hope you won't regret it later." Later, I went abroad. Hilda probably knew I didn't like hearing about Kyle and Jared, so she never mentioned them in front of me during our calls. It's just that we have so many mutual friends, making it unavoidable. I often hear gossip about her and Kyle from others. I heard that Hedda, after playing the field between Jared and Kyle, finally decided to be with Jared. I heard that Kyle got drunk after the breakup, and Hilda stayed by his side the whole time. I heard that Hilda and Kyle ended up attending the same university together. I heard that Hilda and Kyle are together now. Later, Kyle posted an official announcement on his social media, featuring a photo of Hilda. They were probably at some restaurant, with a dazzling night view in the background. Hilda was smiling radiantly at the camera, her eyes filled with such tenderness and love that it seemed to leap off the screen. She looked absolutely stunning. Their hands were tightly clasped together. At the time, I genuinely felt happy for Hilda. She had liked Kyle since childhood, and after all these years, it was like the clouds had finally parted to reveal the moon. Her persistence had paid off, so I left a comment below. Congratulations. Later, I was busy with graduation and had little contact with people back home, until today when I returned to China. Hilda came to pick me up at the airport. We sat together for a drink, and I asked about her and Kyle's recent situation. I thought she would be shy or perhaps happy, but I never expected her to be so calm, saying to me in a light tone, "Kay, I've decided to give up on Kyle." I froze for a moment, looking at Hilda. She kept her head down, quietly gazing at her wine glass. The dim, secluded nightlight cast a glow from behind her, obscuring her expression. All I could see were her slightly lowered lashes, thick, delicate, as if ready to take flight. Her tone was flat, as if she were talking about something utterly insignificant. After a pause, I asked, "Weren't you two already engaged?" She chuckled softly. Hilda had always been gentle, treating everyone with kindness. This was the first time I'd seen such a cold, mocking expression on her face. She lifted her gaze to meet mine, a faint smile playing on her lips as she said lightly, "Even marriages can end in divorce, let alone just an engagement." I fell silent for a moment, unsure of what to say. Hilda were polar opposites in personality. She was gentle and quiet, while I was lively and straightforward. When we were little, our parents often joked about swapping daughters. My mother wished I could be as gentle as Hilda, while her mother hoped Hilda could be as lively as me. But later, after I beat up the little boys my age in the courtyard until they were crying for their parents, her mother never said that again. Back then, I rolled around in the mud every day like a monkey, while Hilda followed quietly behind me in her dress and little leather shoes, her hair styled like a princess, carrying my backpack and keeping watch for me when I beat up the boys who pulled her braids. She'd nervously and urgently whisper to me, "Kay, the teacher's coming. We've been together since kindergarten. Our friendship unbreakable, though it did face a challenge once." Back when we first started having crushes. I secretly liked Jared, and she secretly liked Kyle. We both thought the other liked the same person we did, influenced by all those Taiwanese romance dramas. We both believed we shouldn't compete with our best friend over a crush. So we awkwardly hid our feelings until I sensed something was off and just straight up asked her who she liked. When she refused to speak, I went first. I like Jared. She stared at me blankly, looking utterly bewildered. Huh? What? You like Jared? I fixed her with a piercing gaze. So who do you like? Her face turned red, and after lowering her head for a long while, she finally whispered almost inaudibly, Kyle. You. I scoffed in disgust. You like that pretty boy, always wearing that fake smile on his face. What's the use of being handsome? She glared at me and retaliated in kind. Then what about Jared? Acting all high and mighty every day as if everyone owes him money. So immature. We were both quick-witted and sharp-tongued, each trying to convince the other that the person we liked was the best. But in the end, as we kept arguing, we both ended up laughing. She said, "This is nice." Yeah, it really is nice. Back then, liking someone was a simple thing. I fell for Jared because when the group of little boys I'd been bullying in the compound finally decided to fight back, they came to seek revenge as a team. That's when the newly arrived Jared single-handedly took on 10 of them. Then sneered contemptuously and said, "So many boys bullying one little girl. How shameful." Then he reached out his hand to me and asked, "Don't be afraid. What's your name?" I pretended to be meek, secretly tossing the rolling pin behind my back, and whispered shyly, "Kay." He smiled, then took my hand and walked me home, saying, "What a coincidence. I live right below you. From now on, I've got your back." With a timid and delicate appearance, I nodded obediently under my mother's astonished gaze and said, "Okay." Hilda liked Kyle for an even simpler reason. Kyle was a year older than us and 1 grade above. He had excellent grades and was always the one representing the entire school during flag-raising ceremonies. Hilda also had great grades. I think her liking Kyle was probably a case of mutual admiration between top students. Because we lived in the same compound, the 4 of us eventually became very close, both in terms of friendship and camaraderie. For a time, we were the unrivaled stars of the school, seen as the chosen ones in everyone's eyes. On the day of our junior high graduation, which happened to be my birthday, the 4 of us celebrated by the sea. I made a heartfelt wish. I hope the 4 of us will never, ever be apart. Just a month after making a wish, we met on the first day of high school. Hedda, the hardworking but clumsy Hedda, on the very first day of high school, she accidentally spilled a cup of scalding hot water all over me. The burning pain made me suck in sharp breaths through clenched teeth. Hiss. Yet before I could even react, she was the one who cried out first, tilting her face up with tears welling in her eyes, trembling as she said, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to. I'm so sorry." Seeing how pitiful she looked, I held back my anger, but the 2 large blisters rising on the back of my hand stung so badly that I kept hissing in pain. Beside me, Jared checked my injury, then glared at her fiercely and said coldly, "Are you blind?" She lowered her head without speaking, as if wronged, tears pattering onto the floor. It irritated me to see it, so I said, Forget it. She didn't mean to. That was our first encounter. To be honest, I never really kept Hedda in mind. We were in the same class, but her presence was practically negligible. School A was the top-ranked school in City A in terms of overall strength. Apart from the exceptionally high-achieving students, the rest were mostly the wealthy heirs of affluent families. But Hedda clearly didn't belong to the top-performing elite students, nor did her attire and the unease in her demeanor suggest she came from a privileged family background. Perhaps she was the daughter of one of the school's teachers. Someone in the class had once speculated with such doubt. However, no one bothered to dig deeper. Times had changed. Whether top students or wealthy heirs, everyone was too busy grinding through academics to spare the energy for bullying others like in TV dramas or novels. People without value are simply ignored out of habit. It's harsh, but that's reality. Hedda and a chubby boy sat in a corner seat at the back, quiet as if invisible. The first time I truly noticed her existence was when she got into an argument with someone. The cause seemed to be that her chubby deskmate stood in the middle of the aisle after class, blocking the way for those behind. The person waiting behind clicked their tongue impatiently after a while, probably saying something like, "If you're fat, don't block the path." The usually timid and quiet Hedda stood up to defend her deskmate. Her face flushed red as she said, How can you mock someone's appearance like that? I know that boy. Coming from a privileged family, he's always been arrogant and rebellious, with a sharp tongue. While he doesn't have any real malice, he's overly concerned with saving face. Being publicly called out by Hedda made him flush with anger. He looked at Hedda and sneered. Come on. He's been blocking the way for minutes without moving. Can't I say a word? Jumping to his defense already. What? Does it hurt your heart? What a perfect match you and this fat guy make. Truly made for each other. Just like desk mates should be. Hedda clearly wasn't good with words. Her face flushed red, but she couldn't muster a single retort. Meanwhile, her chubby desk mate was quick to distance himself from Hedda, saying, I don't like her at all. Someone in the class chuckled softly. Hedda stood there, humiliated. I frowned, thinking this was going too far, even though Hedda foolishly stood up for someone who didn't deserve it. I spoke up to help her out, raising my voice. I said, Ken, are you leaving or not? If you're late for class, I'll definitely write your name down and make you clean for a week. Ken raised his hands in a gesture of surrender and obediently said, all right, class president, I'll be right back. He stopped arguing with Hedda and her desk mate, squeezing past them from the side. Hedda looked up at me at the sound of my voice. From a distance, I couldn't make out her expression, but I could sense her standing there stiffly, staring in my direction. I shrugged and turned away indifferently. Behind me, Jared's gaze lazily shifted back from that direction, and I heard him mutter disdainfully, stupid. After that day, Hedda's presence in class grew increasingly quiet. Every time I recall this moment, I wish I could travel back to my first year of high school and slap some sense into myself, perhaps out of pity for her, or maybe just a momentary lapse in judgment. Though I'm not one to meddle in others' affairs, I've always had a chivalrous sense of compassion. This isn't self-praise, but rather Hilda's words about me once. That year during the school anniversary celebration, to mark the occasion, our homeroom teacher said every student in the class had to sign up for a performance. My grades were average, but I'd always been good at these unconventional activities. I organized a play, with male and female leads, supporting roles, and set decorations, instantly solving the performance dilemma for over a dozen introverted and reserved classmates. As the class monitor, every student's performance application ended up in my hands. As the deadline approached, only Hedda hadn't signed up yet. When I asked her, she seemed very uneasy, keeping her head down and avoiding my gaze, as if deeply embarrassed and uncomfortable. I understood immediately, so I deliberately adopted a tone that would spare her pride and casually said, how about this? My play still needs a rock prop. Why don't you be the rock in the background of my play? She nodded quietly. I never would have thought that this play would be Hedda and Jared's origin story. The character of Hedda was something I added later to spare her embarrassment. She wore a prop and played a stone, whether out of particular appreciation or gratitude for this opportunity. She lay there motionless once in costume, quite professional, I must say. After one rehearsal, her legs seemed to have gone numb as she stood up unsteadily. Jared tossed her a bottle of water and said, a stone, and it's just a rehearsal. Didn't you think to sit? How stupid. I glanced at Hedda in surprise, though the words were mocking. Given Jared's usual aloof and indifferent nature, if he truly thought someone was stupid, he wouldn't even bother to glance their way, let alone toss them water and offer what almost sounded like concerned sarcasm. Actually, I've told Hedda twice before that she didn't need to do this, just to be more careful on the day of the official performance. But she insisted on being professional and playing her role as a stone well. Facing Jared's mockery, she did the same. She picked up the water Jared threw to her, blushing nervously, and stammered with her head down. I'm afraid of delaying your rehearsal. So, it's better to be professional. Jared didn't say anything. On the day of the performance, when I was acting opposite Jared, he accidentally stepped on Hedda's finger while moving across the stage. I heard Hedda let out a quiet, ouch, but she didn't move at all. For the rest of the play, Jared seemed somewhat distracted and absent-minded. After the show ended, I still had to host. When I went backstage to host, I happened to see a tall, handsome boy standing in front of a timid, meek girl in an empty corner, frowning impatiently but speaking softly. Show me your hand. Hedda timidly extended her hand, and Jared carefully applied the band-aid he was holding. Then, pressing his lips together, he muttered under his breath again, stupid. Sitting across from him, Hedda looked up with a shy, ingratiating smile at his seemingly impatient remark. I watched this scene from behind the corner, momentarily stunned. I didn't ask Hilda why she broke up with Kyle. To be honest, sometimes I feel like Hilda and I are the villainous supporting characters in a romance novel. We are merely obstacles that add some excitement and ups and downs to the story on the heroine and hero's path to achieving the happily ever after grand finale. As for Jared and Kyle, I've lost interest in knowing who the male lead is. I took a sip of wine and didn't ask Hilda for the reason. Just saying, you're already engaged. Calling off the engagement with Kyle at this point probably won't go smoothly. And the approval from both your family and his family likely won't be easy to get either. Hilda smiled, and I heard a sigh in her voice as she said, no matter how hard it was, it's still better than now. I'm tired. Kay. She turned her head to look at me, and under the soft glow of the light, her eyes held none of the disappointment or sorrow I had imagined. Instead, there was a sense of calm acceptance, as if she had given her all and this was the inevitable outcome. She even wore a faint smile as she asked me, do you still like Jared? After all, when you left back then, you were utterly heartbroken. I laughed, thinking that apart from Hilda, no one else would dare say such a thing to my face. When I went abroad back then, I was indeed heartbroken, but looking back now, that heartbreak wasn't just about the person I liked being with someone else. It was also the crushing despair of a childhood friend I trusted not standing by my side. But the past is like smoke, and whatever feelings I had for Jared are long gone. Now, even mentioning him doesn't stir the slightest ripple in my heart. I said, if you had gone abroad with me back then and dated a couple of tall, handsome blondes, you wouldn't be telling me only now that you're ready to let go of Kyle. Hilda, you've taken quite a detour. She burst into laughter upon hearing this, raised her glass to clink with mine, and said with a smile, I'm relieved to see you so carefree. To be honest, recently Jared and Hedda have been having some issues. They argue frequently, and it seems to me that Jared is becoming less and less attentive to Hedda. Coincidentally, you've returned at this time, and I wonder how Jared will feel when he sees you. She paused mid-sentence, then laughed self-deprecatingly, as if to explain why she wanted to break off her engagement with Kyle. But if the prince wants to exit, Hedda still has a devoted knight waiting in the wings, ready to step in at any moment. I wasn't particularly interested in the conflict between Jared and Hedda, not even enough to spark casual curiosity. I was just looking at Hilda. Even though we had been apart for several years, I still knew her well. She might appear fragile on the surface, but in reality, she was the most stubborn, headstrong, and single-minded among all of us. Otherwise, she wouldn't have persisted in liking Kyle for so long. Now that she had decided to let go of Kyle, it must have meant she was utterly and completely disappointed. But just in case, I sighed and said, Hilda, if you still can't move on this time, even I will look down on you. Hilda tilted her head and smiled faintly, saying, I won't. Kay. We didn't stay in touch for quite a while after that meal, mainly because we were both busy. Hilda was a top student, now working on a confidential scientific research project under her advisor. I went abroad to study film and television production at the University of Southern California. My graduation short film won an award at an international student film festival. Out of interest, I had already registered a media company in China with like-minded friends, and together we made many short films that received much praise and gained many fans, as well as numerous awards, both big and small. This time I returned to China because my graduation short film serendipitously connected me with a renowned director I greatly admire. After several discussions, he showed interest in a rough draft of one of my scripts. After I outlined the framework, he introduced me to his editing team to gradually refine the concept. Probably because he took a liking to me, he asked if I would be willing to join the film crew and learn under his guidance. This was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, so I immediately returned to China. After having dinner with Hilda and staying at home for 2 days, I packed my things and headed to the film set. I never expected to meet Kyle under such circumstances. The script was from a renowned director, and as soon as the news broke, countless actors came to audition. Kyle was there accompanying Hedda. Kyle took over his family's entertainment company after graduation. Hedda had mediocre college entrance exam results back then, and after graduating, she was signed by Kyle, although she initially chose Jared. It's said that Kyle treated her very well. She got top-tier industry resources and priority treatment from the best agents. But I just returned to the country and understand that perhaps the overwhelming resources sparked backlash among netizens, coupled with Hedda's lackluster performance. Despite her hard work, Her acting skills aren't quite up to par. So despite all these resources, she hasn't been able to rise to prominence, only earning mockery from many netizens as a privileged star. However, she also has a group of loyal fans who claim the netizens are just sour grapes, challenging them to find a boyfriend who could provide Hedda with such extraordinary resources. Her fans all assume her resources come from Jared. Kyle seemed a bit surprised to see me but quickly regained his composure. He smiled at me, as gentle as the big brother I remembered, and walked over to say, "Why didn't you say anything about coming back?" My gaze shifted from Hedda behind him to his face, and I smiled politely. "I've been too busy, so I didn't mention it." He didn't seem to mind my aloofness, just smiled and continued the small talk. "Jared probably doesn't know either. Right. A while ago, he mentioned to me that he'd be going to Los Angeles for a meeting soon and planned to visit you. You'd better contact him and let him know you're already back. Otherwise he'll make the trip for nothing." I sneered inwardly. Back then, Jared and I had a complete falling out. He never visited me once in the over 4 years I was in the U.S. And now that I'm back, he suddenly remembers to look me up. I found it tiresome, so even the polite smile on my face cooled. My phone was stolen before, and I lost all my contacts. Kyle acted as if he couldn't detect the dismissiveness in my words. I knew he was doing it on purpose. He's always been meticulous in reading social cues. Unfazed by my reply, he maintained his good-natured tone. "I'll have Hilda send it to you later." At the mention of Hilda, I finally looked up at him with a faintly mocking glance. I wondered if Hilda had managed to break up with him after our dinner that day. At this thought, I glanced again at Hedda, who was standing not far behind him, anxiously looking this way. She seemed terrified of me, her face pale with fear. When I looked up, she even instinctively took 2 steps back. I sneered. I don't understand why, after all these years, she still maintains that same fragile, victimized demeanor from high school. Nor do I comprehend why, despite having a Jared, she still flirts ambiguously with another man. What puzzles me even more is what these 2 men see in her. Perhaps Hedda has some shining qualities I haven't noticed. It can't just be the protagonist's halo, can it? I averted my gaze and smiled. "Mr. Kyle is quite dedicated too. A busy CEO like you still finds time to personally accompany a small-time artist to an audition. If this gets posted online, you'd definitely win the Best Boss award." He laughed, ignoring my sarcasm, and reached out to pat my head like he used to when we were kids. I didn't manage to dodge it. He seemed to be earnestly explaining, "Don't overthink it. It's just that Hedda is timid, and this opportunity is important. I'm just supporting her as a friend. Besides, I am her boss after all." I gave a non-committal smile, feeling disgusted for Hilda. No wonder she's now burning her boats like this. Kyle looked at me and added inexplicably, saying, "Don't tell Hilda." I looked up, pretending not to know, and asked, "Why can't I tell her?" He frowned slightly. Hilda has always had some misunderstandings about my relationship with Hedda. She even brought up breaking up with me over it the other day. I don't want her to overthink things. I sneered. I don't know why he's so dismissive of Hilda breaking up with him. Maybe he thinks it's just a quarrel with Hilda, and that he can smooth things over by coaxing her later. You see, men always seem to be like this. Kyle on one hand believes his care for Hedda is an upright friendship, with nothing to hide. Yet on the other hand, he knows such things can't be known by his current, rightful fiancé. If it were truly just pure friendship, something he considers a reasonable social boundary between opposite sexes, then why would he be afraid of Hilda finding out? It's nothing more than self-deception, convincing oneself with one's own words. I turned to leave when he called out from behind me, saying, "Kay, you might run into Jared in a few days." I rolled my eyes, waved my hand behind me, and walked away without looking back. Casting auditions weren't within my scope of interference. At most, I'd review some actors' audition footage with the director and offer some reference opinions from the sidelines. I didn't see Hedda's audition video. Later, I overheard the film crew gossiping. A few days ago, the person who accompanied Hedda to the audition didn't seem to be her rumored boyfriend Jared. I know him. That guy is XY Group CEO Kyle, the one who signed Hedda. TSK. Isn't it usually the agent who accompanies actors to auditions? This is the first time I've seen a company boss come with an artist. Feels like there's something unusual between them, doesn't it? Shoo. I was there during the audition. Hedda couldn't even deliver her lines smoothly. Director Jim was pretty harsh too. mocking her outright without leaving any face for Hedda. At the time, this Mr. Kyle even asked Director Jim to give him some face. Director Jim bluntly said that if it weren't for his sake, Hedda wouldn't even have made it through the audition door. At the time, Mr. Kyle looked pretty upset, but in the end, he just smiled meaningfully. I feel like there might be more to this later. The voices inside grew quieter and quieter. After some thought, I sent a message to Hilda, asking, "How's the progress with your breakup with Kyle?" There was no reply from her for a long time, and I thought she was probably busy in the lab with her advisor. Turning off my phone, I thought Hilda really couldn't delay any longer. I really don't understand her persistence. Back then, I also liked Jared, but when he stood up for Hedda in front of me, I immediately lost interest in him. So I don't understand what's so appealing about someone who has feelings for another person, and how Hilda has endured it for so many years. This thought had barely crossed my mind when I saw Jared. This should have been our first meeting since our falling out years ago. He sat at the head of the table as an investor. I was somewhat surprised to see him, but he smiled at me knowingly, nodding without hesitation in front of the director and saying with a smile, "Kay, long time no see." Everyone around us cast curious, gossipy glances in my direction. I quickly masked my momentary surprise, smiled back gracefully, and replied, "Long time no see." After I sat down, he turned his head to explain to the curious people around us, "This is the girl next door who grew up in the same compound as me. We used to play together a lot when we were kids." He sighed as if reminiscing and continued, "Later, she went abroad to study and didn't even make a single phone call. If it weren't for tonight's investment gathering, I might have found it hard to see her again." His tone was light, as if joking, and the people around us laughed kindly. Only I sat in my seat, smiling quietly, politely, occasionally recalling the past along with his words. I ran into Jared in the parking lot after the dinner. He was supposed to have left, but there he was, leaning against a pillar next to where I'd parked, holding a cigarette between his fingers, just looking at it, not smoking. Hearing my footsteps, he turned his head toward me, paused for a moment, and then smiled. "Kay, are you still mad at me?" I really wanted to sigh. Back then, nothing really happened between me, Jared, and Hedda. That night during the school anniversary, when I ran into Jared and Hedda backstage, I was genuinely shocked for a long time. After that, I started paying extra attention to Hedda and noticed many things I had overlooked before. For example, she worked part-time at the ice cream shop Jared often skipped class to visit, or how Jared and she were actually much closer than I had imagined. Like how he would casually place a cup of milk tea on her desk when Hedda was hunched over in pain, or how he later chose to sit next to Hedda when we rearranged seats, something he never did before she appeared, always sitting behind me from elementary to middle school. Back then, he often joked with me, "I promise to always have your back, so of course I'll stick close." After he and Hedda became desk mates, Hilda finally noticed something was off. She asked me, "Kay, what happened between you and Jared?" At that time, I kept my head down, staring at my textbook. I wasn't without sadness or disappointment, but what could I say? The vague, ambiguous feelings between Jared and me had never been acknowledged by anyone. In the end, it was just the flutterings of youth and occasional teasing from elders. In reality, there was nothing between us, so who he liked or chose to sit with was his freedom. I had no right to be angry or confront him. Under such obvious circumstances, I wouldn't go and angrily question him, trampling my own dignity underfoot. There was no need. He had already made it so clear. So I pretended nothing was wrong and said to Hilda, "Nothing much. He has nothing to do with me anyway. He can do whatever he wants. It's not my place to interfere." Hilda looked at me with pity in her eyes at that moment, hesitating to speak. At the time, neither of us knew that Kyle also knew Hedda. Up until this point, I held no ill will toward Hedda, until I found out she got into our school because of my dad. At the beginning of the semester, some classmates wondered Hedda how she could attend our school, as her academic performance was indeed not outstanding. Some thought her family members might be school staff, but I never expected it wasn't her family. It was my dad. This is all ancient history, like stale sesame seeds and rotten grains. Before my mom, my dad had a girlfriend when he was working in the countryside, but his family didn't approve of their relationship. Later, my parents married through a family introduction. Two like-minded people who treated each other with mutual respect and affection. At least in my memory, they've always been very loving. I think my mom probably didn't know either. Hedda's mother reached out to my dad 2 years ago. After breaking up with my dad back then, she quickly married someone arranged by her family. Unfortunately, fate wasn't kind. The man she married was a gambler, later chased by debt collectors, and drowned after falling into the water while fleeing. As a single mother, life was hard for her. Somehow, she managed to contact my dad, who had always felt guilty about their forced breakup years ago. So, he arranged an apartment for the mother and daughter in City A, used his connections to get Hedda enrolled in school, and even found a job for Hedda's mother. I found out about this because I caught him having a meal with Hedda at a restaurant near the school. It's hard to describe how angry I was at that moment. But before things were clarified, I didn't want my mother to know about it. First, I confirmed that Hedda and I were not half-sisters, and then I gave my father time to resolve the matter. My father was at a loss and tried to explain to me that he was just helping the daughter of an old friend, that she was pitiful and he wanted to lend a hand. I remained expressionless, feeling that he was treating me like a child to fool me, because there are many ways to help, and none of them involve arranging for an old flame to work at his own workplace or placing the daughter of an old flame in his own daughter's class. I looked through his phone. Hedda's mother still frequently calls and texts my dad, inviting him to meals as a token of gratitude. A woman nearing 40 speaks in a coquettish tone, her words dripping with how lost she and her daughter would be without my father's help. How he's their savior, crossing boundaries with a married man. Though my dad declined her dinner invitations, he didn't reject this adoration. Not wanting to hurt my mom, I gave my dad time to resolve this matter himself. Somehow, this situation later escalated into Hedda coming to me with tearful eyes, saying I could target her however I wanted, but please spare her mother. I was baffled, not understanding how this had turned into my school bullying. From start to finish, I never sought her out, because even though I was young at the time, I knew the root of this matter was my father. Dealing with the woman is useless. Only dealing with the man will work. Back then, I still wanted to give Hedda and her mother some dignity, hoping to resolve this matter quietly. Later, Jared also came to find me. He looked at me with disappointed eyes and coldly said, "How could you do this? Hedda and her mother only have each other, living a pitiful and lonely life. Why must you be so ruthless?" I was utterly speechless. Although I didn't like him at the time, I still considered him a friend since we had grown up together. So, I patiently tried to explain. But then Jared directly asked me, "Besides all this, the reason you're targeting Hedda is because you like me, isn't it?" I was stunned. It was in that moment I suddenly realized that all the years we had spent growing up together meant nothing. He had never truly understood me, and I had never truly understood him. The phrase, "I've got your back," from our first encounter hit me like a cruel joke, slapping me awake in an instant. I remember smiling coldly at Jared, my voice icy as I said, "Jared, who the hell do you think you are? If Hedda refuses the toast, then she'll have to face the penalty. My father is too indecisive to speak up, so I'll do it for him." I printed out all those sweet nothings, thoughtful concerns, and gentle virtues that Hedda's mother had sent to my dad, along with a photo of her and her mother, distributing copies to everyone at school. I stood before the entire student body during the Monday flag-raising ceremony and said with a bright smile, "Hedda from Class 6, Grade 11, could you please ask your mother to stop seducing my father? I've said it before, I've always been too soft-hearted, but unfortunately no one believes me. They think I'm as malleable as clay, easy to pinch and shape. Well, then they'll just have to see how vicious I can be." This incident blew up into a huge deal. Hedda voluntarily dropped out of school, though I heard Jared and Kyle both secretly helped her. My mom was worried about my mental state. After talking with me all night, she went to deal with my dad. My mom kept me in the dark about what happened here. Just before I went abroad, my father was still kneeling in the garden begging my mother for forgiveness. He refused to agree to the divorce. The past feels like a farce now, as Jared stands here, acting as if nothing happened, nostalgically asking me with a sigh, "Kay, are you still mad at me?" I didn't answer his question, instead deflecting by asking, "Hedda, does she know you'd ask me this?" The words were neither warm nor cold. I don't know why, but after I asked, he seemed to think of something and suddenly laughed, his eyes crinkling with amusement, as if genuinely pleased. He walked over to me and said, "Would you like to have a meal together? I noticed you barely touched your food at the table earlier." I looked at him coldly, and he raised his hands in a surrendering gesture, just catching up. Back then, I was young and impulsive, Consider this my apology. I genuinely laughed. An apology settled over a single meal. Mr. Jared is quite generous. As if oblivious to my sarcasm, he also smiled. Then I'll keep apologizing until you're satisfied. I looked at him, his handsome features allowing my gaze. To be honest, I wasn't quite sure what he was really up to. Since I didn't know, then I should find out. I was tired of his veiled probing every time we met. Settling it once and for all would be better for everyone. You, me, and her. The meal with Jared was rather dull. I don't understand why he keeps reminiscing about our childhood memories. When he asked if I remembered queuing all night at 16 to buy him the limited edition Lego set, I interrupted him. Mr. Jared, just say what you want to say. Our time is quite precious. He stopped mid-sentence and just looked at me with some regret. We can never go back, can we? That makes it sound like the relationship between me and him is just like Eileen Chang's. Half a lifelong romance. I couldn't help but frown. It's been 7 years. Jared, I don't understand what there is left to reminisce about. And let me remind you, although I don't like Hedda, if I recall correctly, she's your girlfriend now. Jared let out a mocking laugh, as if my mention of Hedda had only made things worse. His expression gradually cooled, and he said, doesn't she still have a devoted knight at her beck and call? I found it absurd and ridiculous. Momentarily speechless, Jared turned his head to look out the window, his expression wistful. Sometimes I don't even know what's wrong with me. I used to genuinely like Hedda. Back then, I thought she was kind and resilient. During the theater performance, I accidentally stepped on her hand. Her face turned pale from the pain, but she bit her lip and didn't move a muscle. Later, when I learned about her background, I felt even more heartbroken for her. The affection of youth was real. Over the years, I've paved the way for her, given her resources, but all she seems to have is relentless effort, with no real growth to speak of. Back then, when my family opposed us being together, I felt I could move mountains and part seas for her. But now, as my family gradually softens their stance, I realize she and I are no longer from the same world. I watched the fleeting confusion on his face and found it laughable. I think Hedda is holding a script straight out of a campus youth novel. She's just like the female lead in such stories, only needing to be strong, hardworking, kind, innocent, and from a pitiable background. In every moment of hardship, the male lead naturally descends from the heavens to rescue her from dire straits. But the backdrop of the campus novel has ended, frozen in the happily ever after, where the villainess flees abroad, and the devoted male lead and second lead stand firm in their protection. Yet life goes on, and now it seems one of the male leads has grown weary of always playing the savior, tired of Hedda still resembling the campus novel heroine, having nothing but resilience and effort. But isn't this how he once loved her? I'm too tired to keep dancing around with him, so I speak up. Mr. Jared, my time is precious. If you want me to be your therapist, that's a separate fee. He laughed, a hearty and unrestrained sound, and after a while, he fixed his gaze on me and said, can't we even be friends anymore? After all, we're the ones who belong to the same world, aren't we? I picked up my bag and stood, sighing as I looked at him. I said, Jared, we stopped being friends 7 years ago. After a pause, I added, you and I were never from the same world to begin with. At this point, I thought we had both laid our cards on the table. From now on, we'll go our separate ways, and if we happen to meet in the same circles, it'll just be a distant smile and a polite nod as we pass by. This matter is truly closed for me. The next day, photos of him and me made headlines. The headline was quite sensational, saying, Hedda's wealthy second-generation boyfriend secretly meets beauty. Campus romance possibly threatened by third party. Of course, this piece of gossip was quickly taken down by someone, but Hedda probably saw it. Not 2 days after this gossip, she appeared before me, with the discretion expected of a public figure. She was dressed very conservatively, covering most of her face with a scarf and wearing sunglasses. It wasn't until she stood right in front of me that she removed her sunglasses, raised her almond-shaped eyes, bit her lower lip, and called out to me, Miss K. I turned to look at her. Ever since that incident years ago, she had always been somewhat afraid of me. This was evident in the way she shrank slightly whenever she stood before me. But this time, she mustered the courage to face me, her eyes reddening before she even spoke. She said, Miss K, I know it's you in that photo. She blocked my path, So I had no choice but to look at her impatiently and ask, "Yes, it's me. So what? Didn't you go ask Jared what he said to me?" Her face turned deathly pale, though her tone still feigned composure. She said, "I trust Jared, so I don't need to ask him. I just hope you'll stay away from him." I laughed, meeting her gaze directly for the first time. My expression must have been utterly cold as I said, "I'd like you to say that to yourself and Jared. I hope both of you will stay far away from me." I didn't want to deal with her, so I pushed her aside and walked away. She called after me, "Kay, I won't let Jared invest in your film, and I won't be acting in it either." I didn't pause my steps and walked away without looking back. After this baffling conversation, Jared's investment indeed fell through because one of his conditions was to have Hedda play the female lead. But unlike what Hedda claimed, that she refused to act, so Jared didn't invest. The truth was that when Jared proposed Hedda as the lead, director Jim outright rejected it. The two couldn't reach an agreement, and the investment was scrapped. I found it both amusing and exasperating. Jared on one hand believed Hedda was from a different world than his. That night he came to talk to me with such words was merely testing the possibility of us being together. This person is very clear-headed. Hedda is not a suitable candidate for marriage, which is why he said I belonged to the same world as him. Perhaps he thought that after all these years, I still hadn't let go of him. As long as he turned back and showed even a hint of nostalgia for the past, I would throw myself at him. I don't know where he got such confidence. He wants to find a marriage partner of equal social standing, yet he can't let go of his instinctive habit of trying to save Hedda. How disgusting. On the day our crew started filming, another director in the industry also announced the commencement of their project. Jared and Kyle joined forces for a big-budget production, a golden producer in the industry, a renowned screenwriter, and a gathering of numerous movie stars, all supporting Hedda in secondary roles. When I saw this marketing post, I forwarded it to Hilda, who responded with 6 dots after a long pause. She and Kyle have formally informed both sets of parents about the cancellation of their engagement. It's said that Kyle has been trying hard to win her back. Yet, while attempting to reconcile, he's still so openly devoted to another woman, truly living up to the title of the infatuated second male lead. Hilda called me with a laugh. I sent that news to my family. They were still hoping I'd give Kyle another chance, but after seeing this headline, they all fell silent. Finally, she let out a long sigh and asked me in confusion, "Kay, tell me, all these years, what exactly did I see in Kyle? It's so strange." Yeah, it's really strange. But thankfully, I came to my senses in time. 18 months later, Hedda's film was released. That big-budget movie, packed with veteran actors, flopped spectacularly. Hedda, as the lead actress, was ridiculed and trended on several hot searches. With over $1 billion in investment, the box office barely surpassed $3 million. One wonders if those investors might want to swallow Hedda whole. Oh no. The investors were Jared and Kyle. They invested for love, so they must be content with such losses now. A month later, our film that was rejected by Hedda was released. Due to its profound content, discussions and its spread dominated trending lists across all social media platforms. It broke box office records and became a meme for sharp comparisons among netizens, while Hedda was once again dragged into public ridicule. The day the box office hit $2 billion, that photo of me and Jared having dinner resurfaced on the trending list. The headline revisited old news, claiming that Hedda's wealthy boyfriend was secretly meeting with the creators of the blockbuster film, sparking rumors of an affair. Then appropriately, paparazzi captured Hedda looking haggard while drinking heavily with friends late at night. The narrative shifted instantly. No one knows how such a blurry photo led to someone accurately uncovering my personal information. No one discussed the content of my new film, only how miserable Hedda was. Some claimed I bullied her in high school, forcing her to drop out, while others said Jared and I were childhood sweethearts, and I'd been trying to interfere in their relationship all these years. Some say this movie was originally meant to be Hedda's role, but I maliciously snatched it away. Later, a friend of Hedda's leaked a recording containing words spoken when Hedda came to see me last time. She said her friend Hedda was just venting to her, and she released the recording only to stand up for her friend. "Miss K, I know it's you in that photo. It's me. So what? I trust Albert, so I don't need to ask him. I hope you can stay away from him." No one was discussing any more Hedda's box office flop or the disastrous system, and instead, they all turned to attack me, even affecting the currently screening films. For the first time, I proactively reached out to Jared, asking, "Aren't you going to step forward to clarify or explain?" After a long hesitation, the reply came, "Kay, consider this a favor I owe you. Sweetie needs the topic to divert attention. Your film broke 2 billion in 3 days. Your future is limitless. You have everything. But sweetie, she can't afford to lose anything more." I calmly asked, "So you're not planning to clarify, is that it?" There was silence on the other end. I chuckled. I wasn't really angry, just disgusted. I said, "Jared, I'm not you and Hedda's damn babysitter. What does anything have to do with you, Jared, or Hedda? Am I supposed to carry your drama? Am I out of my mind?" With that, I hung up. That call was the last ounce of decency I could muster. That night, I released a statement. First, regarding the rumors that I bullied Hedda in high school. Funny enough, the text messages of her mother seducing my father back then are still saved. The second point is the recording of our conversation that night when Jared asked me out to dinner. Yes, who doesn't know how to record these days? But while Hedda edited hers selectively, mine is complete. I even included this statement from Jared when I asked him to clarify. The third point is that the lead role in this movie was originally supposed to be Hedda S. I've attached Hedda S audition video, director Jim's in-person feedback, and later messages showing how Jared threatened to withdraw funding but was rejected by director Jim. With irrefutable evidence and clear logic, I finally called out Hedda and Jared, saying, "You picked the wrong person to mess with. Don't play dead. Apologize to me, or I'll sue for defamation and spreading rumors." Netizens ate it up, enjoying the dramatic plot twist. If I were Hedda, I'd want to move to another planet by now. The stock price of the family plummeted. But I really appreciate the attentiveness of netizens. Someone dug up Hedda S audition video and found Kyle, commenting, "Why does this person seem quite ambiguous with Hedda?" Naturally, everything can be uncovered. Hedda S side remained silent as if playing dead, but responded extremely quickly to this news, saying they were just friends and employer-employee. At this time, Hilda registered on Twitter, and Kyle posted a statement calling off the engagement, effectively nailing these two to the pillar of ambiguity. I stood by the enormous floor-to-ceiling window, gazing at the twilight outside, and thought, what an absolutely stunning scene. Later, Kyle came to see me, looking haggard and disheveled, asking where Hilda was. Oh, Hilda was with her senior brother. They went home to see their parents last week. Kyle probably heard the news, so he came to ask me. He couldn't find Hilda, nor could he see her. Without a pass, he would never be able to see Hilda at the National Research Institute. I said, "What's the matter? Great night. Hedda needs you now more than ever. Why are you looking for Hilda?" He gave a bitter smile, shook his head as if words couldn't express it, and finally walked away in despair. Jared seems to have been on blind dates recently. His family's stocks have been hit, and their business market is declining. He needs to find a suitable marriage alliance to turn the situation around. It's just that the incident caused too much of a stir, and there doesn't seem to be much progress. After all, who hasn't heard what he said to me? "Kay, I owe you a favor. Sweetie needs a distraction. Your box office hit 2 billion in 3 days. Your future is limitless. You have everything. But sweetie, she can't afford to lose anything more." He couldn't reach me and later had someone look for me, but I remained unmoved. Later, he simply gave up. I have no interest in accompanying them through their poorly written teenage campus novel. From now on, we won't meet again.